Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. I turn now with us to the Calamus section, to a little poem called This Moment, Yearning and Thoughtful. This is one of those brilliant little poems that so many of us will often skip over in our reading of Leaves of Grass, and I'm going to challenge you to enjoy a little poem like this. Now, my assumption is you've been with us at LearnStrong.net for all of our previous studies, all the way up from inscriptions all the way through to a stranger. Norton's will tell us background information here that this Calamus number 23 was designated in the manuscript as number 5 in Roman numerals, and then in 1867, a line following the present fourth line read, quote, "It seems to me they are as wise, beautiful, benevolent as any in my own lands." And it was dropped, and then in 1881 the present lines 3 and 4 were constructed from the former line 3. Now, the poem will have great resonances from earlier. This moment, yearning. For example, do you remember in our reading of Eidolons in the 19th stanza we read, "And thee, my soul, joy ceaselessly exercises exaltations, thy yearning amply fed, at last prepared to meet thy mates, Eidolons." And do you remember in Song of Myself, passage 19, that we'll have this passage that will read this way for us. "This is the press of bashful hand, this the float and odor of hair, this the touch of my lips to yours, this the murmur of yearning." And then do you remember in our Pent-Up Aching Rivers that we had this game getting played for us as well, singing the bedfellow song, "Oh, resistless yearning." It is a word that Whitman loves. Let's read the poem. "This moment, yearning and thoughtful, sitting alone. It seems to me there are other men in other lands, yearning and thoughtful. It seems to me I can look over and behold them in Germany, Italy, France, Spain, or far, far away in China or in Russia, or talking other dialects. And it seems to me if I could know those men, I should become attached to them as I do to men in my own lands. Oh, I know we should be brethren and lovers. I know I should be happy with them." Now, we're just continuing a theme that is clearly a Calamus theme as well. That is to say, the theme of inclusivity, the theme of always being together, right? His word, thoughtful, that he uses is going to come back to us in Lilacs with the huge and thoughtful night. Whitman loved that word, thoughtful. Notice this moment, that is to say, immediacy, right? Yearning and thoughtful. And then we're back to sitting alone, just like to a stranger and elsewhere all the way through Leaves of Grass, right? That tension, again, between the individual artist versus the artist working to try and be a part of. It seems to me is utilized 3 times here to echo the fallibilist position. I think I'm right, but I could be wrong. But it seems to me there are other men in other lands yearning and thoughtful. In other words, Whitman, if there's one thing he wants us to do in our study of Leaves of Grass, it's to identify with all other living beings on this planet as somehow sharing something in common, namely longing or yearning and thoughtful, reflective, right? It seems to me I can look over and behold. He loves that word, behold. We saw it several times in Calamus already. Behold them in, and then he's going to list 6 nations, the big 6 we might think of, in Germany and Italy and France and Spain, China, Russia, of course. These are the major countries that will, along with the United States, have so much influence in the wars that will soon be fought in the 20th century, sadly to say. It seems to me if I could know these men, I should become attached. This is our key word in Calamus, this attachment, this adhesiveness. To me, if I could know these men, I should become attached to them as I do to men in my own lands. In other words, language is not a barrier. Culture is not a barrier. He says, I know that I could be pals with just about anybody, and it's going to be significant that Leaves of Grass will become very popular, translated into all of the languages of those 6 countries he just mentioned, especially we think of China. Oh, I know we should be brethren and lovers. Of course, his word is typically comrades. I know I should be happy with them. It is fascinating to me, as I've said to you in lectures on the Declaration of Independence, that Jefferson uses the word happiness. Scooby Snacks, as we'll refer to them in 303, 2 times. In Calamus, we're playing a very similar kind of game. 9 times, at least in Calamus section, we're going to get the word happy there. Well, at 2a, obviously artists remind us of how interconnected we all are and how fascinating that is. At 2b, all of those echoes of yearning in Leaves of Grass come back powerfully. At 3a, I want you to write this one down because we're just getting ready in many ways to read Passage to India. When we get ready to read that, we're gonna come back to some of these kinds of lines. And I mentioned and quoted Tennyson's Ulysses already. I'm a part of all that I have met. Yet all experiences in art where through gleams that untraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. To follow knowledge, he'll say a few lines later, like a sinking star beyond the utmost bounds of human thought. That's really what Whitman is going to have learned, I think, from his study of Tennyson. Finally, at 3b, do you in fact feel connected with others in this world? And what is it that you yearn for? And is your study and your reading of Leaves of Grass helping you with that yearning? I hope that it is. Thank you.